Today I've been working on the craft table and making lots of little miniatures to fill the area underneath. And this isn't so much as a tutorial, it's just really giving you some ideas of how you can fill the spaces in your craft shed. Because all of these little things are just so simple to do, and I'm sure you've all made little bits and pieces like this before for your dolls' houses or scenes. So it really is just giving you some little ideas of how to fill the spaces, and I like to really sort of jam-pack things but without making them look too overfull. And in here we've got like a bag of wadding and some sort of materials, craft materials all rolled up, a little crate of fabric there, a couple of boxes. I love making boxes for my scenes. So easy to make and they look really good. We've got a box filled with wallpaper there. So all very, very simple, but I'll just show you what I did, and it might give you some ideas of how to fill your own little work table. You might want to do it exactly like this, or you might just want to take a few pieces from here, or you might already have a lot of your own ideas. So just a simple little video just to move us on to the next stage. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with a really easy project, and it's our bag of wadding. So I'm using paper from an actual brown paper bag, and I just always keep paper bags. I love paper bags, so I'll just stick them in my craft drawer. And I've cut a section from there which includes that lovely sort of serrated top edge, and that measures 115mm by 50mm, so about 4.5 inches by 2 inches, but you really don't have to be exact, but you just want it to sort of come, I don't know, 3/4 of the way up underneath your table. And we've got 50mm in there, 2 inches of space height wise, and always cut it a little bit taller than you want it, because then we'll fold up the bottom to make a base. Okay, so just curl it around into a cylinder. You sort of get the size right, and I've cut more that way than I need as well. It'll be about like that, and then apply glue to the bit you want to glue down. Like that. Fold it around, sort of keep tucking it in until you've got the sort of width that you want, like that. And then we just sort of want to make it into a box, so make a fold in one edge, and then another fold just a little bit away from it, and this just helps it stand up. And then do the same thing on the other side, so a fold there, another fold, and then just snip away a little bit at each fold, about 6mm, 1/4 of an inch, like that. And then tuck those side bits in. Like that. And fold over the longer flaps. Like that. Now I'm just going to put a little bit more glue on my card. Okay, so just put a little bit of glue then onto the flaps, and then a line of glue on those longer edges as well. And then fold the flaps in. You're going to get nice and gluey doing this. Fold that in as well, and then you can put it on your worktop and either put your finger in or a pencil just to sort of press that bottom bit together, like that. worry about the glue on there. And I'm just going to trim off that bottom flap. Like that. And then I actually just want to cut a little bit in the top like that. And I'm going to fold over those top flaps. Like that. Just to make it a little bit shorter. And then you just want to put your wadding inside. It's not going to stand up. So obviously the wadding is far too big, so just tear it up into sort of small pieces. Keep tearing. And just start filling the bag. Push it right down into the bottom. Don't worry about creasing the bag, we want it to look all old and creased. A little bit more in. Like that. And then squeeze the bag and shape it. And you might have maybe a tear in the front where you've been digging into it, like that. Just put another little bit of wadding on the top there. Like that. Squeeze it all together. There's our little bag of wadding. Okay, next we're going to make the postal tube. I'm putting one of those on there because I don't know about you, but whenever I get anything in a postal tube I always keep it, and I either store other things in it or I just keep it just in case. So I'm using this lovely manila card. It's got a lovely sort of texture to it, but you could use any sort of brown or grey card that you've got. And I've cut a piece of 6mm dowel to length, again just sort of fit nicely under the table, but you don't need to wrap it around a piece of dowel. You could just sort of fold it around a pencil to get the shape and then just glue it into a cylinder. Make it a bit easier. So just apply glue to your piece of dowel. And the piece of card that I've cut is just slightly longer than the dowel. So lay that in the middle. And fold it around. Like that. Sort of roll it on so it's nice and tight. And then apply a bit more glue to the end of the card. Stick it down. Again, keeping your roll nice and tight. And then just while that begins to dry, I've printed off here, using Excel, a tiny little address label. And I find that if you use a font like a handwriting or a script font, and then use the size number 3 font, it makes it really, really tiny. And I've just made up an address there: Mrs. Little, The Crafter's Shed, Squirrel's Landing, Oxfordshire, OX20 1LB, for little bits. I just think it's quite funny to do things like that, and probably nobody will ever see it. Well, apart from you, of course. And then glue the address label on. Like that. Okay, not too neatly, doesn't have to be square. And maybe just peel a little bit of the corner away. Like that. Fold it up. And then what I've got here is some brown tape, and I'm going to cut off a tiny slither, probably just, I don't know, a couple of millimetres, like that. I'm going to start putting that around the bottom, so you've got a little bit of an overhang there. I've got glue on it from my fingers, so it doesn't want to stick, but it will. Like that. Fold that in. Press that in like that. And then do the same around the other end. And you can do a couple of those to go underneath if you like, or elsewhere in the craft shed. And it's these little details, like putting the parcel tape around the end, that really sort of add the details that make a scene look real. Okay, we're now going to make a little cardboard box for our wallpaper to go into, our rolls of wallpaper. So I always begin by making a paper template, just so I can check that the size is correct. And in this case I just wanted a square box, and this is 22mm square, so just under an inch, about 7/8 of an inch. And the basic template is just so simple. So you've got the front, side, back, side of the box, and you want to then make the flaps, which are these pieces at the top here, half the thickness of your height of your box. And this will work for any size box you want to do. So if you wanted to do something a bit more oblong, you just have a wider two side pieces, and then you want to cut the flaps and always leave a little sort of tab at the end of the template as well, and that's where you'll glue it together. And then I keep all of these paper templates as well for when I want my next sort of box. So then trace that onto your actual piece of card that you're going to use, and bear in mind that you want the pencil marks on the inside of the box. So this has got a nice sort of shinier outside edge, which I want as the showing edge. So I've traced it on the inside, and then you just basically want to go along all of your fold lines, and when you're using a bit of a thicker card, I find it helpful to do that against a ruler. So you just fold everything against the edge of your ruler, make sure you get a nice straight fold, and I've already done this one. And then you basically just start making up the box. So you fold it in, the flap will go on the inside, apply glue to your flap, and then press those together. Get your fingers inside and press it all together. And I love making little boxes because you always have a little space that you want to fill. And a box you could just make any size you want. Good squeeze together. And then you just want to fold in your flaps. I'm actually going to apply a little bit of glue onto the underside of the flaps. The other one as well. And you can lay that on your surface, get your finger in there and press that all together. I'm just going to leave that to dry for a moment and go and get my brown tape. Okay, so I'm going to actually sort of apply tape to the bottom of the box, and this is just normal brown parcel tape, and it's quite flimsy, which is good for these sort of projects. Stick a piece to your work surface, and then I've just marked up some 4mm lines here. This tape is 2 inches thick, so about 50mm, so your tape would be 4mm wide. So just over 1/8 of an inch, and then you can just cut it on your work surface with a knife like that. Just want 3 strips. And I'm going to put a piece straight across the bottom, just like you would do in any sort of parcel. just use the smaller scissors to trim a little bit off each side. And these are such tiny, tiny little details, but it is these details that makes all the difference. So never sort of think, oh, there's no point doing that. Just that in like that. And the final piece over that other side. Okay, and then like you would do with a normal box if you decided to keep it for storage, you'd probably fold in the flaps. So I'll do that, or tear them off, sometimes you might. So fold those in, really sort of press the crease in. Like that. And then I've got another little address label that I'm going to stick on there. I'll just apply a little bit of glue to the back of the label. Again, printed this off. I actually printed this one off NXL. Again, using like a script style font. I know normal labels are normally straight, but I always think things look a bit more interesting if you put them at an angle. And then I also printed off some of these labels, fragile and handle with care, and I used a font for that called Raffica. And I use this on my tea chests as well. If you followed that tutorial, you would have heard me talk about Raffica, and it's the perfect sort of font for this. So I'm just going to use one of those little fragile labels there. Just cutting as close to the lettering as I can. A bit of glue on there as well. Stick that down there. I'm going to sort of have that sit in here in this corner. And then for the actual wallpaper, I'll just get that piece of tape off my desk. So for the wallpaper, again, I've been online and I actually typed in Laura Ashley wallpaper because I just like her design so much. And I've just picked a few, about I think 5 or 6 here, ones that sort of took my fancy. And then I put them all, opened them all in Photoshop and put them all onto one page, saved just printing such a small area onto one piece of paper. But if you haven't got Photoshop, you could maybe just print off a larger area like this. Just find a really, really small print. I made these into 36mm squares, and then I've trimmed them to be 36 by 25, which is the 12th scale size of a standard piece of wallpaper that you would buy for your doll's house. So cut them all to that size, and then you can roll some of them up long ways. I've done the brick paper long ways like that, just so we get a bit of variety in the heights. and then you can roll some of them up short ways. So to roll them up, you just start them off round the end of a cocktail stick, around the middle of a cocktail stick rather. Just twist it round, just to sort of get it going. And you can take it off there and roll it around. Keep it straight. Like that, and then just apply a little bit of glue to the end. Stick that down. It's just gone a little bit skewed there, so I'm just straightening it up again. Like that, and you can make some thicker as well and some thinner, just to add a real bit of variety in the box. Right over there. And just keep going until you've done them all. Okay, so once you've rolled all of your wallpaper up, you can begin attaching it into the box. And I'm going to start in this back corner with the taller pieces. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue in that back corner. On both edges like that. And then I'm actually just going to put a little dab of glue on the end of the roll as well. And just stick that into place like that. And you don't have to sort of even push it down too hard, because it will all stick together, because it's just paper and it's so light. Once you've sort of started to cover the glue area, you can apply a little bit more. I'm just going to put a little bit on the front of these rolls now. Basically, you just want to build up from back to front until you've fitted everything inside. And try and sort of stagger them a bit as well. You don't want everything to look too uniform. Okay, so there's the completed box of wallpaper, and a few other really simple things I've made to go under there. A roll of foam, and I wrapped this foam around a cocktail stick that's still in there, and I just really sort of stretched it to make it thinner, and then just tied that with a piece of embroidery floss. The same with this piece of canvas, just made a roll, tied it with some cotton, and then some grass matting as well. Again, tied that with some embroidery floss. Just some really sort of simple ways again of filling the space under there and giving a bit of height at the back. And now I want to make a wooden crate for some fabric. Okay, so we're going to construct a really easy little crate now to store our fabric in. So I'll give you the sizes here rather than doing a cutting list below. So for your front and back pieces, cut them 25mm across by 20mm high, and that's 1 inch by 3/4 of an inch. Your base piece here should be 22mm wide by 32mm deep, and that's 7/8 of an inch wide by 1 1/4 inches deep, and I'm rounding up the inch measurements, or rounded them to the nearest sort of whole fraction. And then for the sides, 20mm high again and 32mm deep. So again, that's the 3/4 of an inch high and 1 1/4 inches deep. And then we're going to begin by scoring grooves along the front and the side pieces, front, back and side pieces. So on each piece, do a little pencil mark 6mm from the top and bottom edges. So 6 from there and 6 from the bottom. And then using a flathead screwdriver, score a groove across each line, just like that, and the same across the bottom one, like that. So do that on the front, the back and each of the side pieces. And that's 6mm or 1/4 of an inch from the top and bottom edge. When you've scored all of the grooves, take a piece of sandpaper and fold it, make a fold, and then you can go along each groove with the piece of sandpaper, and that just tidies up the inside edges and makes the groove a bit more prominent. Again, do that on each piece. And then take the front and back pieces and make a pencil mark in the centre of this top section. So do a line down the piece like that, and then turn it and find the centre again, and do a little dot there like that. Raise the pencil line and the dot will stay there. And then you want to drill a hole to either side of that central mark, and this is a 1.5mm 1/16 of an inch drill bit. So go to either side first, and we're just making a little handle here, little handle pull. Like that, and then the other side. And then drill a hole in the centre, and that will join the three up. It's moving over into the outside one there. So just keep going until you've got a line of holes there. And then what you can do is just push through with a cocktail stick to remove the wood in the centre, like that. And then take a tiny little piece of sandpaper, and you sort of want to make it into like a little square like that will fit through the handle, and just sand away those edges. Do that on the other piece as well, so on the back piece as well. Okay, so once you've done both of the pull handles, we can begin to construct the piece. So apply glue along each edge of the base, each long edge, and then the grooves will be on the outside, so attach the side pieces so the grooves are facing outwards. Press them together. I'm just going to leave that piece to dry off for a moment. So once that piece has had enough time to dry so you can handle it without it falling apart, apply glue to the front and back edges. Put that back down on your work surface, and then attach your front and back pieces again so the grooves are facing outwards, and pull up those sides so that they're flush with each side of the piece. Same with the front piece. And you can sort of carefully lift it up and manoeuvre it into position. So you've got a nice flush box piece. Press it all together can then be left to dry, and we'll give it a final sand before we apply a coat of paint. Okay, so I let the glue dry for about half an hour, and I've sanded this box on all edges and all sides, just holding it against a sheet of sandpaper on my worktop and going around in circular motions to make a nice flush box. And I'm now going to give this a coat of paint just on the outside, and then once that's dry I'm going to distress it. Okay, so while the paint is drying on my crate, I just want to make one more piece for this table, and that's just going to be another really simple box. So you just basically want to draw a square to the size that you want the base, or an oblong, and then you want a border all around the edge to the size that you want, or to the height rather, that you want the box. In this case it's 10mm, and then you just want to square off the corners. So section off the corners, like that. And then you're just making a little cut at each of these corner flaps along the sort of long edge. Then take your ruler again, and again you want your pencil marks to be on the inside of the box, and sort of fold along all of your lines. I'm just making this to give a bit of height to the fabric box and just add a little bit more interest to that area. And I don't know about you, but I just always sort of keep boxes and things because I think they come in handy. Actually, they just end up cluttering the place up, but I still don't get rid of them. Like that. So fold up the ends of the box, fold in those flaps there, or those corners. And then you want to apply a little bit of glue to each corner. Same on the other side. And then you're just basically gluing those corners on the inside. So push them both in, both ends of the box, and then pull up the sides and squeeze together. Same on the other side. Squeeze it all together and square it off. Pinch the corners in. Again, another really easy way of making little boxes that you can just make in any size you want. And then this is the base piece. So when you come to make the lid, you need to do it a couple of millimeters larger on that central area. So your sides would still be the same height. So in my case 10mm, but you would want your central section to be slightly bigger, and that's just to take the sides that you folded up. I've done that here, so I'll just fold this one up. Just pinch those corners into shape like that, and then that will just slot nicely over the top of the base like that. So I thought that box looked a little bit plain, so I've just printed off the DMC Threads logo. Again, just searched Google for that, and I've just stuck that on the end. Just makes it look a little bit more interesting. Okay, so once the paint on my crate had completely dried, I just went round, sanded it all over with a fine grade paper, and then used a medium grade sort of to concentrate on the corners and along the edges, just to take away some of the paint and give it a sort of used or distressed look. Okay, so once you've done that, rip off a piece of kitchen towel, and we're just going to fill the bottom of the crate with it, just to give us a bit of a base. And then I've just been through my fabric box and cut off, this is probably about the smallest pattern I've got And remember, this is meant to be 1/44 scale, so that's probably even a little bit too large for that, but I wanted to add a little bit of pattern in there, and then some plain sort of coordinating fabrics. And I just really want to fold these and have them draped slightly over the edge of the crate. So I'm going to sort of have a play about first to see how they look, and then I'll actually glue them in. Okay, so now all of the bits and pieces are made, I'm going to start sticking them into place. And I'm going to begin with this box, which I want on the corner. I'll apply glue to the bottom of the box. In there. I'm then going to glue this little box into place. And first of all, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the edges of the box so that the lid will stay in place. In fact, it's already sticking on that side. Must have been a little bit of extra glue on there. I'm going to put that near the top there. And just press that together. I'm going to glue that into place on this side of the table. With a little bit of an angle as well. Then want the bag of wadding at the back, and I'll probably have that ripped edge towards the front because it looks a little bit more interesting, like that. Put the wadding back in. And I'm going to stick the crate to the top of the box, and you're basically just sort of building up so there's something to see from every angle, so you've got lots of sort of different heights and angles, and there's something of interest sort of whichever way you peep in. And then all of my rolls I want to sort of give a bit of height at the top, so I'm going to start with the shortest one, which is this sort of roll of foam. In this corner, so that can be seen from the side. And then I'll put the canvas. I might try and get the postal tube in that gap there. And then finally this, which I'll stick in at the back there. A bit of glue on the side. A little bit on the bottom, and that can go in there. That postal tube is a bit loose, so I'll put a little bit more glue on the side of there and stick against the side of that crate. Same as always, you've got time to keep manoeuvring until the glue has completely taken. I'm quite happy now with how that looks, so I'll just get that postal tube in the right place, and then the table can go back inside the craft shed. Okay, so I'm going to pop that back in place there, and I'm really pleased with how that's looking. And I just wanted to show you a couple of other things I did. I made a little crocheted throw to go on the back of the chair, and a little cushion. And the cushion is still loose, but I will be gluing it into place. And the throw I actually stitched into place, so it's attached there. I've stitched it together, and that way it just hangs better. It looks heavier. If you don't stitch it, it would just sort of stick out, and a blanket in real life wouldn't do that. So that's stitched together, and I'll glue the cushion into place once I've decided where that's going to go. And then I'll just leave that there for a moment. I also made a little waste paper bin, and the tutorial for this is actually in my book, Making Doll's House Miniatures in 1/12 scale. So you can find that in there. Really sort of simple, easy little project. And again, I would probably never leave my waste paper bin that full, but it's just so much more interesting, isn't it, packed with rubbish than just having an empty bin. So that's going to go under there. And once I've done all the displays on these pieces, I will be gluing all of this into place, the furniture as well. I'll pop the chair back there. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I say, it was more of just sort of giving you some ideas of ways that you can fill up your craft shed, rather than an actual tutorial, because it's all very sort of simple stuff, but just little things you might not have thought of, just to fill up all the spaces. And I think when we've got our doll's house on there, that's going to look really good. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, then please subscribe, and do give the video a thumbs up as well. That would be appreciated. And if you enjoy making your own doll's house furniture and miniatures, you might like to have a look at my books. I've published 4 so far. The latest one was just out at the end of September. They're all available to purchase from Amazon, and I'll pop a couple of links below. And for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.